Hey folks, it's Amy from Two Oaks Farmstead and Farm Life and Freedom. And I'm coming at you today because I had to add in addition to my regularly scheduled podcast episodes, I had to add something in because things are going nuts right now. I mean, like the world is on fire. It really feels like the world is on fire and everyone's just standing around watching it burn. But I mentioned in the beginning that we would be throwing in some current events and that kind of thing as they affect us. Things that are going on in the world right now are affecting every one of us, regardless of what we do, where we live, anything like that. It feels like things are kind of crashing around us. And I think this week has definitely proven that Trump derangement syndrome is still alive and well. The Durham Report came out this week, a couple days ago. Finally, people's heads have been exploding ever since then and going in so many different directions. You can see the orchestrated effect on the dim side, okay? They don't typically do anything without it being fully orchestrated. And you can always tell that when you flip through the channels on, the news shows and hear the exact same lines coming out of all of them about the same stories. It's kind of silly, honestly. But the Durham Report comes out this week, and it basically further proved that Trump has been right about everything he's been saying all along, starting from the beginning, starting from back in the first election cycle, where he came out and said, they're spying on me. And I remember him saying that, and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit. But then I remember everyone just flipping out over it. How dare he say something like that? How could he possibly say something like that about our government? And I think a lot of us, honestly, probably the majority of us, just folks out here in the country, we're probably sitting here going, yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, I buy it. Because, I mean, hell, they've been spying on citizens for the longest time, and that's been proven time and again. So I don't think it was a big stretch for us to believe back then that they were, suddenly spying on the Trump team, during the election cycle. But they came out and flogged him over it. Well, the Durham Report comes out and basically proves, yep, he was right. He was right. Okay? But that's not as far as it goes. It continues on. In the words of the Durham Report, it says that the FBI failed to uphold their mission of strict fidelity to the law. That's kind of their whole job. So they failed to do their job. And, folks, regardless of whether or not you like Trump, regardless of whether or not, he hurts your feelings or whatever, you've got to at least be smart enough to sit back and go, you know what? He's an American citizen. And I'm an American citizen. And if they can do something like this to him, then they can damn sure do it to me and to every one of the rest of us. He's got the platform to be able to spread it, put it out there. He's got the money to be able to fight it when it happens to him. And most of us don't. Most of us just have to freaking take it. And I think it happens probably a whole lot more than what a lot of people think. That's one part of it. So then the report comes out and says that Crossfire Hurricane investigation, the whole Trump-Russia collusion thing, should never have even been opened. It should have never been started, not just because they only had a little bit of information. They just had a little bit of evidence. No, because the evidence that they had was false. It was fake. It was made up by who? The Hillary campaign. Surprise, surprise. This is one of those moments when people like myself just want to say, we frickin' told you so. We've been telling you this all along. But it took this investigation, a 4-year, $6 million, I believe those were the numbers, investigation, to come out and say, yep, they were right. Trump was right. And the rest of us have been right this entire time. This was all complete BS. And it should have never happened. Should have never happened to him. And it should have never happened to our freaking country. That man, and I don't care. I do not care if you don't like how brash he is, if you don't like how straightforward he is. Well, sometimes, guys, you got to take your feelings off of your sleeve and you got to tuck them in, okay? Because it's not about your feelings. It's about getting stuff done in this country, keeping the people of this country safe, holding on to what we've built as a country. And Trump was the one. Trump was the one to be able to come in and stand up to all of these idiots, I don't care, Democrat and Republican alike, who have dug their heels in Washington because they're getting paid out the frickin' wazoo for favors that they're trading. He was the one to come in and say, we're not doing this stuff anymore. We're draining this friggin' swamp. And the powers that be, or the powers that were, didn't like it. They didn't want to be told that they couldn't do that stuff anymore. He was the one guy, the one politician, and he's not even a politician, but the one guy who entered into politics who was ever willing and able to do just that. To stand up and say, tell dictators, you know what? This is what we'll accept, nothing else, and we're moving on. Tell other countries that, you know what? If we're going to help you, if we're going to put money in and our people in, and we're going to help you defend your countries and what have you, then you are going to have skin in the game too. And that is only fair. Even when they have their skin in the game, we're still doing way more than everyone else. And I know as a soldier, I can tell you that we do more than everyone else. And he was willing to come in and say, we're taxing our own people, not just financially taxing, but physically taxing. We're sending our troops across the globe to take the brunt of everything going on out there. And we're also expected to pay for all of it. And so when we as America pays for all of it, it's us. It's our dollars that pay for those things. For instance, my dollars are sitting in Ukraine right now. Getting back to the story, Durham Report comes out, finds that it should have never been started, the whole investigation, it should have never happened. So what would have happened? What would have happened if the FBI was a legitimate law enforcement agency? The leaders at the FBI. Now, as a soldier, I've been under some poor leadership and I've been under some good leadership. And I know that a lot of times the grunts are still doing their job, doing what they're supposed to do, and the leadership is, screwing everyone over. I figure that's probably the majority of what's gone on here in the FBI. That's just my opinion. I would say at least a possibility. But with that being said, I believe that they have screwed our country over to the point that I wonder if even Trump can turn it around. And I will say that I believe he is the only one who could possibly turn it around. All of the crap that Biden has done to this country in just 2 years is going to have to be reversed. And then we're going to have to try and catch up. Think about where we would be right now even if Trump only had one term. Guys, even if he only had one term, if he hadn't had all of the investigations and the media constantly at his throat, I mean, if he hadn't been inundated with all of that crap, what else would he have been able to do? I mean, the Democrats were fighting him left and right on the border, right? And it pushed off, because of all the legal battles and everything, it pushed off his ability to be able to get the friggin' wall finished, right? So where are we now? After Biden was installed 2 years ago, we have a fully friggin' open border with people in control who swear up and down the border's not open and it's all under control. Meanwhile, we've got all of these illegals, and we don't even know. We do not even know who and how many are truly coming in across the border every day. Title 42 is done now, and they are just filing in. And I guess they're just going to hide, go in and hide until the Democrats say, you know what, you can just be citizens now. That's the next thing I'm expecting to hear, because they need them on the voter rolls. That's the whole point, I believe, of the Democrats' insistence on opening the freaking border. You know, something that people aren't thinking about, I believe, because I don't think that, I haven't been hearing enough of it. So I don't think people are thinking about some of the extra effects of that. Now, obviously, they're giving them our money. Okay, so that's our money, and they're giving it to them. People who are not citizens of our country, people who are coming across here illegally. So their first act in our country was an illegal one. They broke the law, but they don't care. So they're coming in by breaking the law, and then they're getting money and housing, and they're allowed to stay, and they're getting sent to wherever they want to go, and they're not being deported. We've got criminals left and right coming in. We know we've caught some of them, but I guarantee you we haven't caught all of them. We have got people on the terror watch list. We've got Chinese spies. We've got all of these people rushing across our southern border, and the Biden administration does not care. But something to think about. You know, a lot of times when they talk about the border crisis, they talk about, well, it's, these people coming to pick lettuce or whatever. There's not enough lettuce in this country to require that, just so you know. But I can tell you that there's more than just the whole, taking our jobs thing, which that's what it will be, obviously. But there's more than that. I want you to think about the added strain on our resources. Think about that for a second. Remember, just hasn't been too long ago, during the whole COVID thing and everything that's been mismanaged by Biden. Think about our grocery store shelves being emptied out during that time and not being able to get them fulfilled, right? So no baby formula, and the toilet paper was out, and people couldn't buy food because they think that it comes from a grocery store, and all of that. That's just the grocery store, okay? So we add all of these hundreds of thousands of people who they don't have a garden, so they're not growing their own food. They're going to be going to the grocery stores spending money that we gave them because they don't have any. That's going to be a real challenge that people aren't thinking about. What about schools? We already know that when illegals come and they bring their kids or whatever, they throw them in public school. And now you have a non-English speaker, or lots of them, in a class of English speakers. And the teacher has to slow everything down in order to try and cater to the illegal children that are in there. Okay? Now, I'm not heartless, and I want these children to have happy, healthy lives, but it wasn't my decision to drag them up across our southern border and shove them in an English-speaking school. But our schools are going to suffer even further, and I guarantee you they're going to want more taxes because of it. Financial resources obviously are going to be depleted. They're going to want more taxes for that too, because the more of our money that they take to give to the illegals, then the more of our money they're going to need to pay for everything else that they keep coming up with. What about medical facilities? Think about that. When illegals come here, if they get sick or if they get hurt or if they have the babies that they're pregnant with when they come up here, they go to the ERs, okay? And that which makes it, when we have an emergency, we can't even get seen in our own country at our own hospitals. Maybe hours and hours of waiting. We might possibly be able to, but it's the illegals. They're there. They're filling up the place. I heard a story just not too long ago at one of the border areas that one of the hospitals there is literally possibly going to have to fold. It's going to have to go out because the illegals come in, and that's where and they're filled up with all of them, and they're not paying a bill. And they're local people, women who have, are pregnant, and people who are needing surgeries and what have you. They can't get seen. They have to go way away to a different place to try and get to a hospital. And that is so anti-American. I cannot believe that we are doing this to our own citizens just because, and I guarantee you this is behind it, just because the Democrats are trying to pad the vote. They want new people to come in here and give them ballots and send them to the polls, whatever. I guarantee you that's what is behind this whole thing. There is nothing else. There's not any good reason at all for them to do it this way. Immigration is fantastic. If our country needs, a certain amount of people to come in every year in order to, assist in the job markets and all of that. That's fantastic if you do it legally. But when you do it legally, we need to know who the hell you are, what your background is, what you're going to be doing here, and we should tax the crap out of you too. If we're having to be taxed, so should you. It's so frustrating. It is so frustrating to sit here and watch what's happened to our country. In just 2 short years. In just 2 years, guys. He has turned our country upside down. And they're still screaming about it's all Trump's fault. What the? Okay. I'm going to say one other thing about this with the report coming out. I saw Asa Hutchinson, former governor of Arkansas, speaking a couple days ago. And I've heard a couple others say this same thing. They say that Trump should drop out of the presidential race because of all of the attacks against him. But in Asa Hutchinson's words, it's a distraction. What the hell? If that was what we went by, then the Democrats could literally pick and choose who they wanted to run against. Whoever the weakest person is. Asa Hutchinson, maybe. Whoever is the weakest, they would pick them. They would throw a tax at everyone else, and then they would have to bow out because it's a distraction. And then they could sail through the general election because they chose the weakest candidate to run against. I cannot believe any thinking person would be okay with that. It's the Democrats' playbook, okay? Which came out of the Hillary playbook, I fully believe. If a Republican or a conservative is running, you get somebody, doesn't matter, 30 years ago to say, hey, he touched me wrong, or he looked at me the wrong way. Pretty sure he said a bad word 30 years ago, so I'm going to bring that up now. I'm going to sue him now, or I'm going to whatever. It happens all the time. Think Kavanaugh. You don't even have to run for office. You have to be appointed to the Supreme Court. Well, everything was perfectly fine until he was appointed to the Supreme Court by a Republican. And then all of a sudden, that moron dipshit out of wherever she was from starts bringing up all these charges against him. Ones that, by the way, could not be proven. And the same thing's happening to Trump again. It's constant attacks. But that shouldn't mean that Trump has to bow out. What it should mean is that everyone throwing an attack needs to be charged if it's not real. I fully believe that. And personally, I believe that includes the media. When the media goes on the attack and just spouts lies about a politician, especially during an election cycle, I believe they should be charged. I'm talking jail time. That's what I believe should happen. But who am I? I'm just a citizen. I'm just a voting citizen. Guys, I hope things start looking up because I'm not sure how much further down that they could look. I will say this. I try not to get way political until, it's like down to the wire. Let everyone make their own choices, have their own, say, and I'm happy to debate, but I try not to jump out there. But this is, I couldn't go any further without saying anything else. I fully believe that he's proven that Trump is the one guy who can turn this thing around. I can't think of anybody else who can do it. I think that there are some good people in the field right now, but I don't believe any of them have the ability that Trump does. The ability and the will to do things the way he does. And I believe that's exactly what we need. I think everyone needs to tighten up their girdle and stop being so offended. For God's sake, stop being so offended. But if the president says something that you feel is mean, just, move on. As long as he's getting stuff done for this country, then it shouldn't bother you. It really shouldn't. Till next time, I hope we survive.